So more than a few people insisted that I watch Hazbin Hotel, and after hearing that it has a rabid fanbase full of sociopaths, I thought, what a great idea, why not pick a fight with a bunch of deranged women full of antidepressants over the internet? So after watching the whole season, my thoughts on it is that it sucks balls, but it could have been okay if not for the showrunner's need to cram in as many characters and storylines as she possibly could, even if they
Yeah, the pacing is one of the biggest things that people have issue with on this show.
don't work and just waste screen time that would have been best spent on developing the main characters, but because she has done this, the plot ends up becoming a mess. But before I get into that, let me quickly give you the premise. It's about Charlie, the princess of hell, as she attempts to redeem souls in her hotel and send them to heaven in order to deal with hell's overpopulation crisis. She wants to do this in order to avoid the angels' current solution to the problem, which is to once a year kill a bunch of demons purge style. From its premise, it sounds like the show has a lot of potential for the story to explore. Interesting concepts like second chances, forgiveness, and do people really deserve to stay in hell forever? Unfortunately, the show becomes a bit of a mess as it tries to introduce way too many plot lines and characters, but doesn't take the time necessary to set them up properly. So what we end up with is a bunch of half-baked ideas and rushed character arcs that fail to fully develop, and I know the reason why that is. It's because this was originally a bunch of songs made by a YouTuber whose work mostly consists of adult-themed animated music videos.
So he's just wrong here. Like, this isn't a matter of opinion. Like, this is just a straight up factual inaccuracy. He makes it sound like Vivzy created all the songs first and then made a show around them. That's not what happened. She made a few, like, AMVs of other people's music with her own animation. And then she made the pilot of Hazbin Hotel, which had a few songs. And then she made Hell of a Boss, which had all of its songs, many of which were uploaded as separate music videos after the fact. But she has never, like, made a whole collection of songs and then made a show around that. I don't know why he thinks that happened. This is a weird misconception, but it's I guess it's kind of telling for how good the analysis is going to be when it starts with such a blatant factual inaccuracy. Because, I mean, listen to how he says this.
So it becomes pretty obvious that the priority she had was to cram almost a decade's worth of her YouTube videos into 8 short episodes.
Yeah, that's not what happened. That's, like, that makes no fucking sense, because the songs in the show, like, have a clear story significance to what's going on. It's not like the songs, it's not like a jukebox musical where she had all these songs that she did separately and then just cobbled them together into something, into a story. Like, these songs were written for this specific story that was written by her and whoever she collaborated with on writing the episodes. It's a really weird start right off the bat. It always, it's always a little bit disarming when there's someone whose take you disagree with, and he begins his video by just giving you a mountain of ignorant garbage and just, like, showing a blatant lack of understanding of the context of what he's talking about. It's a little bit disarming because it's like, okay, this is not, like, someone I need to worry about. This is not an opinion that's really going to challenge me.
Which is why everyone has 2 songs in it, even if they don't accomplish anything and kill the pacing. The songs by themselves are fine, and most people will like them, but more than half of them are completely unnecessary, and they're sung by characters that don't need to be in the show, but are only here because they have to sing their songs. The time they spent on all of the singing and dancing should have been spent on developing them.
Yeah, and see, this is the first problem I have with this video, aside from just the factual inaccuracy. One of his complaints is that it's a musical. It seems like he doesn't like musicals, but I like musicals. And I would say about 25% of the appeal of this show is from its musical numbers. You take that out of it, and the show instantly becomes like twice as generic as it would be otherwise, and half as interesting as it is, half as charming as it is. I think the musical numbers are a really significant aspect of its appeal. And from what he said, I mean, he said that the musical numbers were okay. And he said that the show as a whole sucks balls, which I take to mean that probably he thought that the musical numbers were probably one of the better parts of it. He just didn't think that they worked in the story. So I think even he acknowledges that the music really gives the show a lot of character, which kind of makes his criticism feel a little bit weird. That, okay, you don't like musicals, but you think that the songs are okay as long as they're on their own and not in a musical, in a broader story that it's trying to tell, because it takes away from the development of the characters, I guess that's his argument. Which, I mean, I don't think that the musical numbers are to blame for taking up runtime that could have been spent on character development. I think that, I could agree that the pacing of this show makes for weaker character development than it could have had. And maybe there were missed opportunities that they didn't take. But I don't think that the songs are to blame for that, for hogging the runtime.
The main cast and explaining why they are at the hotel. But telling a good story clearly wasn't the priority of the writers. It's having these songs in the show no matter what, even to its own detriment. So what this show ended up being is a compilation of the creators' music videos with a poorly written plot to tie them together. Retarded and irrelevant characters like Camilla, Cherry Pie, the TV Demon, Mimsy, and every angel except Adam shouldn't have been in the story, but unfortunately they are. The show also wants big dramatic payoffs, but won't take the time to set them up properly, which is why they end up having no impact. The whole point of Hazbin Hotel is to redeem sinners, and yet we barely see that happen. Charlie, whose entire idea this was, does a shit job, as she fails to help.
Yeah, so the whole point of the hotel is to redeem sinners, and we barely see that happen. It's such a strange criticism. I've heard this one before. And it's like, I mean, clearly the show was trying to, I mean, very, very clearly the part of the conflict of the show is that it was really difficult for her to get this project off the ground in any way. Like, nobody wants to come to the hotel because nobody wants to be redeemed, because nobody thinks that there's a hope of redemption, because there isn't really a hope of redemption, because heaven doesn't want to work with her. So everything is stacked against her. The whole world is stacked against her plan. And so the whole premise of the show really is watching her just unshaking faith propel her along her mission to do a thing that is impossible. She's walking up a waterfall with shoes that have no grip and are coated in olive oil while a big hailstorm wreaks havoc on her. And you know that, and she's pushing a boulder while she's doing it. That's what she's up against. And then at the end of the season, she actually succeeds. Unbeknownst to her, she succeeds in redeeming Serpentius. Now, the explanation for how that happened is very lacking, and that's one of the big weak spots of that final episode, was that we don't even really have a hint of an explanation for how that happened. All we know is that Sarah said there's a lot that you don't know, which maybe implies that there's something beyond Sarah's power that determines who gets into heaven. And of course, nobody seems to know in the angel assembly. Nobody seems to know what gets you into heaven. So it's a big mystery. But it's also left kind of vague, like what can kill a demon's soul. Like if Serpentius was killed by Adam's beam of angelic light, then shouldn't that like permanently kill him? Why was he like resurrected in a different life? It doesn't, there's no real clear like hint to what the explanation could be even, and that's kind of an issue. But when it comes to just Charlie's story, when it comes to just the concept of the hotel redeeming sinners, the redemption of Serpentius is the big kind of punchline and climax to it that makes it all worthwhile in the end. Media Musing says, does he not understand that the story can be told through the songs? How much of the story is told through the songs? I mean, a lot of it is, I guess. Like, definitely Happy Day in Hell and Hell is Forever were important to the storytelling. I think the thing with songs is that they extend moments. So you have like a basic idea that the characters are trying to get across, and that can be gotten to in maybe a minute. But if you have a song, it kind of extends that a lot and makes a bigger point out of it, which I think is good for pacing. It kind of gives us spaces to dwell on important beats. But sometimes they're not very, like, the things they choose to focus on are not very important. Like, or they don't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I feel like Whatever It Takes was a song that like desperately wanted to be important, but they didn't set it up in a way that made any sense, and so it really kind of fell flat as an emotional beat. So that would be an example of where it kind of feels like a jukebox musical, where it's like, what are we even trying to say with this song? These retarded characters, guy sounds a little biased. Well, yeah, this guy is a bit of an edgelord, and he's also an anti-SJW.
Help anyone. In fact, the only person who provides anything close to help is Husk the barman, and he is only doing this since Charlie is not around, as she has usually fucked off on some random side quest instead of...
I mean, without Charlie's initiative in creating this space for healing and redemption, and also without Charlie and Vaggy's like guidance for Husk, there would have been no help for Husk to even offer. Husk wouldn't have even been there. He would have been off somewhere gambling and drinking. Like, part of it is that she's creating a space for sinners to help each other. That's kind of a part of the thing. They're becoming a family together. They're seeking redemption together. And so, and you know, this guy says that Charlie's always off doing something else. There are moments in the show where there's a lot of moments where she's helping directly manage the affairs of the hotel, doing exercises with the sinners. And of course, there's a lot of stuff that's off screen that we don't see where she's doing that. Like there's a part in episode 5 where she's going crazy with all the thumbtacks on the bulletin board and all the pictures and the ropes. And she's like talking about all the things that she's tried, like the trust falls and the blah, blah, blah. Now it happens that she's not very good at what she does. But if anything, that just makes her character more endearing. That she's not good at it, but her drive to do it is what makes her the right person for the job. Even if she's not really a good counselor. She doesn't really quite have what it takes to counsel people in an effective way. She still, what she has is the ability to create a space for that to happen and the ability to grow in that way.
Of doing her fucking job. Now, before I go through the plot, I wanted to point out that the writers of Hazbin Hotel think that they are being edgy with the overuse of sex, violence, and swear words in every sentence. But what they are being is safe edgy, which really means it's not edgy at all. This shit is mainstream, and most shows are doing it. I mean, this is on Amazon Prime, the same streaming service that has The Boys, which does way worse things than this. This is set in hell, yet none of the demons say...
Okay. So, this is like him trying to have his cake and eat it too. It actually reminds me a lot of a criticism that YMS brings up a lot, where he'll talk about kids' movies that get a whole bunch of praise. People are in love with these movies and they recommend them and they say, you gotta see them. And then he'll watch them and he'll be like, this sucks, this is mediocre, it's not very good. And then he'll also hear the criticism, well, it's just a kid's movie, so don't judge it too hard. And he's like, well, there's a double standard here where I'm supposed to think that this is really good. But then if I don't think it's really good, then I'm not supposed to think it's really good. It's just a kid's movie. It's like there's this standard where we're not expecting it to be good because it's a kid's movie. So if it's only a little bit good and not great, we're pretending that it's great. Very much what we have here is a similar idea. Is he wants to have two narratives at the same time. He wants to say that the creators are trying to be edgy with no evidence. And then he wants to say that what they're doing isn't edgy at all. It's mainstream. So essentially, he's creating this fictional narrative in his head of what these creators are trying to accomplish with this show that isn't really justified by anything. And then he's saying, well, that's stupid. Well, if it's stupid, then why would you think that why would you be so uncharitable as to think they were doing that? I've seen no evidence that the creators of Hazbin Hotel were trying to be edgy or groundbreaking, really. What I've seen is that Vivzy is a person with a sense of humor that's very attuned to enjoying sex jokes and swearing. That's kind of how her sense of humor works. And I can vibe with that because it's also kind of how my sense of humor works. But I don't think either of us think of that as particularly edgy. To us, I think it's quite mundane and like a regular part of our lives. Like, I just think in swear words. That's just how my brain ideas. And so I think it's a much similar thing for her. Her writing just has a lot of swearing because the people in her life use a lot of swearing. It's a pretty realistic way for people to talk in our society. I mean, not everybody talks that way, but a lot of people do. So if it's realistic, and it's commonplace, then what exactly about that screams this is trying to be groundbreaking and controversial and edgy. It's a narrative that doesn't really have a lot of justification.
Anything remotely racist, and the only sexism we do see is from Adam, who's an angel and the main antagonist of the show, and that's the reason why he is the only character allowed to do so. The writers clearly want you to hate him, but they completely fail to do so. Instead, they end up making Adam the best character of the show. Now, I obviously have no...
I mean, I love Adam, too. I think he's one of the best characters in the show. I think Alex Brightman is hilarious. I think he was meant to be, like, kind of likably annoying. I think he was meant to be kind of charmingly annoying. Like, he's annoying to Charlie because Charlie is such a good person and he's so not a good person and he's always trolling her for fun. But I think we kind of like to see people troll Charlie because it's funny. Because it's just fun to watch her get irritated. Like, that's why people resonated so much with that Susan joke in episode 7, where she's like, "Fuck you, you old bitch!" We love seeing Charlie get agitated, and so we can't have that sense of humor. Like, this wholesome character who's a Disney princess getting irritated with people and lashing out. Like, that's hilarious. And so we can't have that without a character who serves as that comedic foil, and that's Adam, and he does it perfectly.
Problem with swearing. I do lots of it in my videos, even when there's no fucking need, but the swearing in this is not because the writers are trying to be provocative and funny, and more like it's the only way they know how to write.
So, are you saying that you are trying to be provocative and funny when you swear? Like, it sounds to me like this is the only way you know how to write. And I don't think that's even a bad thing because, like, honestly, I think that swear words accomplish things that you can't do without swear words. I think they're a very essential and important part of producing really snappy, humorous commentary. And they can be a really useful way to create snappy and humorous dialogue in a comedy show like this. They kind of connect with us in a way that kind of, I guess, politically correct words don't. So they're useful.
Why we even have the angels swearing excessively, even though heaven is supposed to be this squeaky clean place. Anyway,
Adam and Lute swear excessively. St. Peter says one F-bomb when he's really surprised. I don't know if that counts, because Sarah doesn't swear, Emily doesn't swear. They're the other two major angel characters we see. Lute and Adam are villains, and they're in the army, and they kind of have their own thing going on, and they seem to be kind of exempt from a lot of the rules. So, and I think part of that is to kind of show that it's not really clear why there's a difference between heaven and hell in the first place. If hell is forever, then heaven must be a lie. If angels can do whatever and remain in the sky. I mean, that's directly brought up in the text of one of the songs.
Anyway, the meeting they have is retarded for two reasons. The first is that Charlie's plan is stupid. She wants these angels to blindingly trust a demon they don't even know in the rehabilitation of other demons before moving large amounts of them into heaven without any sort of security or screening process. That's like...
Wrong. She never says that. She never says, I'm going to take St. Peter's job and I'm going to take over your security and I'm going to man the gates of heaven. She never says that I'm going to be your new border patrol. I'm going to take over your customs and immigration. No, what she's doing is trying to open up a dialogue so that she can start a process that can get sinners admitted into heaven eventually. This says nothing of any kind of vetting process. I mean, that's a discussion that wasn't even able to get off the ground because Adam and Sarah weren't even willing to listen to her, weren't even willing to really hear out her proposal. Maybe Sarah was a little bit, but it's clear that she really had no faith in it from the get-go. So he's just plain misrepresenting what's going on here.
Charlie is reading out of her mother's book, which states outright that heaven is evil.
They would send down an army, an extermination, to ensure hell and its sinners could never arise against them.
Now that's a bit of a problem.
Charlie should have already known that the overpopulation myth is a lie and that her hotel plan was never going to work. But now we have no story, and the only way for the show to carry on is to have Charlie conveniently forget that her hotel is meaningless and to just continue on with her plan to redeem people despite there being no reason to do so. Now, if it...
No reason to do so. I think this guy is taking his philosophical orientation toward pessimism and then applying it to an optimistic character erroneously. So, I mean, one thing I can say, to his credit, he is bringing up one good criticism of the show, which is that Charlie was operating on this assumption that the problem is overpopulation, that's the problem that the angels are addressing with the extermination, when she knew, according to the Book of Hell, that wasn't true, because in the Book of Hell, it says that the exterminations are due to trying to prevent an uprising from hell from occurring, which is not about overpopulation. It doesn't say anything about overpopulation in that narration segment. So there's an inconsistency there that the show doesn't do a good job of reconciling in any way. And that's actually a pretty major story issue with that first episode. But I disagree with his premise that this one meeting with Adam should be enough to make her totally abandon her mission of trying to help sinners. She says in the song, "More than anything, I need to save my people more than anything." It's something that matters to her literally more than anything. So I don't see why someone, especially someone with such an optimistic disposition as Charlie, would or should be dissuaded, based on the logic of storytelling, from continuing her mission to save her people in whatever way she knows how to do it. Now, it happens that she doesn't know how to do it. And so her plan going forward is just to keep the hotel open in hopes that a new opportunity will arise. And in episode 5, she's freaking out about it because she's realizing that months have passed and no opportunity has come about, and her efforts aren't working. And so Vaggie tells her to get in touch with her dad again. Vaggie tells her to ask her dad for another meeting with heaven. Or not, no, she actually doesn't. She tells her to get in touch with her dad, and then Charlie says that could actually work, because her dad could get her another meeting with heaven. Somebody more important than Adam, and hopefully less of an asshole, that's her words, not mine, than Adam. So he's applying he's basically like, this one meeting with this one mean angel should have just destroyed any hope or reason for this highly optimistic person to do the thing that she thinks is the most important thing in the world and her calling in life. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, does it, from a storytelling perspective? Like, there's a difference. Charlie is a character, and a character is going to have their own personality, and that personality might inspire them to make decisions that you don't entirely agree with or understand. But that doesn't make that a problem with the writing.
There's a boring subplot about making an advert for the hotel, but seriously, who gives a shit?
It's not boring because it's an opportunity to see the characters shine and to see their sense of humor on display. To see Vaggie trying to do her best to be serious while nobody else is taking it seriously. Alistair's just having a good time watching everyone fail. Nifty's just a complete freaking freak. Husk is just a jaded employee who doesn't want to be there. And Angel just can't help himself but be irritatingly horny. It's a really funny group dynamic. And Vaggie being the straight man makes it work. It kind of pulls the whole thing together. So it's not a boring subplot.
That was episode 1. Episode 2 is about
and it
the
introduces
TV
the
demon
characters.
trying to kill Alistair,
We need that
demon.
plot to
He
introduce
sends a
them.
guy into the... It turns out that an angel has been killed, which every demon thought was impossible, and it was Carmilla who did it. But when her friend asks her why doesn't she just tell everyone that the angels can be defeated, she replies saying that it would start a war and that her daughters would be in danger.
That doesn't make sense.
Carmilla and her family were targeted anyway, so telling everyone that the angels can be killed will make no difference to her daughter's safety. No,
it will, because remember in episode 1, Lute told Adam, why don't we just go down there and kill them all? Implying that they have the power to do that. They just don't do it usually because they know that they're not at risk. They know that no harm is going to come to them. But it seemed that Lute was really bothered by the fact that an angel died. Like, that was not part of the program. That was not supposed to happen. And the fact that it happened made her so mad that she was willing to just exterminate every single sinner in hell. And so Carmilla was right. Carmilla had the right idea, which is that these angels are way more powerful than we. So we can't be messing around with killing them in the first place. She only killed one because it was going to kill her family. And once she did it, she tried to hide it as much as possible so that nothing like that could happen again. So that there was as little chance as possible of a retribution like that.
in fact, telling no one that the angels can be killed is even worse, because angels and demons live forever. Eventually, sometime in the future, her family will be targeted again in another purge, and she might not be there to save them. The smartest thing she could do is try to organise a fight against Heaven to try and stop the killings, rather than just waiting to be killed. Also, Heaven has been doing this for thousands of years, and they're trying to tell us that only now has a demon ever managed to kill an angel.
Yeah, that's stupid. That's a big problem I have with this season. It makes no sense that in the thousands of years of doing these exterminations, no one would figure out that you can use angelic steel to kill an angel. That's really dumb. And I wish that they would have come up with some explanation for how that was possible. Very, very lazy aspect of the storytelling. And it was also very rushed explanation in episode 7. One of the reasons why that's the worst episode in the season.
Unfortunately, Carmilla is retarded, so she decides to keep her mouth shut, and that was episode 3. Moving on to episode 4, which is probably the best episode.
He didn't even mention the biggest problem with that episode, which is whatever it takes, and how weird of a beat that was.
Because it actually focuses on one of the main characters, Angel the porn star suffering from abuse by his pimp. What's good about it is that Angel actually shows some character growth, which none of the other characters do. Now, Angel is bound to a magical contract to a pimp called Valentino, who makes him star in gay pornos all day. He copes with his enslavement in a self-destructive manner, and the only person who helps him realise that he should stop this kind of behaviour is Husk the barman. He is the only person who manages to empathise with Angel because he too is enslaved to Alistair due to his gambling addiction, so they are both in a similar situation. Now, that's all good, but unfortunately the writers never identify the root cause of Angel's problems, which is that his enslavement is down to his promiscuous lifestyle. Even if Angel was free, he would just end up under the thumb of another pimp because of how he lives his life, and he doesn't see a problem with it. He loves to be a man whore and a drug abuser.
He would never sell his soul again. He made that mistake once, he would never make that again. So, like, the problem is that there's no way out of this contract. Like, if Valentina were just a regular pimp, like, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. He could always escape that arrangement somehow. But Valentino owns his soul, so he's magically bound to do what Valentino wants. And that's not a mistake he would repeat. So it doesn't really make sense to say that his lifestyle of doing drugs all the time is just always inevitably going to lead him into the same position.
Abuser. He says this himself.
I got an appetite for sampling
Every drug and sex toy I can find.
So unless he drops these vices, his problems will never go away. If he continues to swim with sharks, he's eventually going to get eaten. But the writers don't seem to be aware of this problem, as they think they can have their cake and eat it too. To them, Angel should be able to live like a drug-addled cum dumpster and suffer none of the consequences. Also,
no, because he stops doing the drugs. Yeah, because for a while he stays clean. And then Cherry Bomb comes in and ruins his progress. That was made very clear in episode 6. It's made very clear that the drugs are a problem for him. And that it's a vice that he resorts to out of desperation because he wants to have some illusion of control over his life. This guy just is really bad at understanding basic text. It's not even subtext. It's like basic aspects of the storytelling and character development. So, yeah, this show doesn't glamorize his drug addiction at all. It doesn't say that it's healthy or helpful. Now, his promiscuity is another thing. This show is sex positive, and so it doesn't have any problem with him having a lot of sex. The only problem with him having a lot of sex potentially is having and spreading STDs. But as far as I can tell, he doesn't. Say what you want about it, they're pretty good at preventing the spread of STDs in their line of work. They do a lot of testing. The only times when he will come across people who aren't tested is when he's not doing the porn shoot. So I guess in that case, sure, that might be something to look at. But that's a very tangential side of things. And it's always possible to practice safe sex anyway, even if you are promiscuous. So it's not really a very good criticism.
See Lucifer. He says that this is the first time she has ever called him. He immediately rushes over to the hotel on a moment's notice and is friendly with both her and her friends.
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
The writers are trying to tell us that he is a negligent father and that their relationship is strained, but what they are showing us is a father who is more than willing to help his daughter out.
No, what they're showing us is that they had a falling out, and Lucifer is insecure, and he thinks that his daughter doesn't like him. Because, the thing was, he was excited that she was calling him, because the only times they ever talk is when he calls her. And he only calls her when he has an important reason to call her. So clearly, she has some reason not to be calling him. And that's something that they didn't quite explain very well in the show. And I can maybe forgive him for not understanding this, because even I'm unsure of exactly what they were trying to do with this dynamic between them. Because I guess the only clue is in the pilot. She's sitting down at her front door and saying, she's leaving a message to her mom, because her mom never picks up her calls. And she's like, maybe Dad was right about me. And so that kind of implies that her feelings were hurt by something her dad said about how he doesn't believe in her mission or message or whatever. But that's about as much explanation as we get. So it's not very clear what their falling out was about, and why there's this kind of distrust between them. It does seem to get resolved pretty easily in this episode. And so that's, I guess, I would call that a writing flaw for sure. But I don't think it's quite the way he's representing it here.
Anytime she asks, the only thing he's hesitant to help with is arranging a meeting with Heaven, because he sees it as a waste of time. But after Lucifer and Charlie sing one song together, their relationship, which apparently has been strained for hundreds of years, is now fixed.
Wow, that's really lazy.
So Lucifer somehow arranges
hundreds
a
of
meeting
years?
with...
No, as far as I know, Vivzy said that Charlie is only about 200 years old. So... yeah, I don't think it was that long.
With Heaven, despite having been kicked out from there, and Charlie still hasn't bothered to ask her dad, the king of hell, to free her friend Angel from sex slavery. It doesn't seem like a big ask, as her father is more than willing to help her anytime she wants. Oh well, must have slipped her mind.
What a bitch.
The other half of the episode is wasted.
She doesn't know that Angel sold his soul, as far as I can tell. Like, Angel... see, and this is one of the issues with how the show is paced. It's really condensed, and there's a lot that we don't see, but there's never a part in the show where Charlie finds out about the fact that Angel's soul belongs to Valentino. And so it's kind of hard to say that she would even have the knowledge to be aware of the fact that Angel is in this contract against his own free will. And she also made the mistake of overstepping Angel's boundaries in episode 4 when she tried to convince Valentino to let him spend more time at the hotel. So it makes sense that she would be wary about that. It makes sense that she would want to at least confer with Angel before setting up anything like that. Or that there would be some trepidation there. And so, yeah, maybe it's a little bit strange that the show doesn't bring up that issue, but I don't think it's quite as simple as he's making it out.
On some random fat demon called Mimsy, who just shows up out of nowhere. She is yet another pointless character that is only in the show to sing her song before fucking off. And that was episode 5. Episode 6 introduces yet another meaningless character. This one's called Cherry Bomb. She shows up to the hotel to party with Angel, and you'd think that Charlie would have a problem with Angel, the recovering addict, hanging around a bad influence like Cherry Bomb. But no, turns out she's more than fine with it. She even gives Cherry Bomb enough money to take everybody at the hotel out.
Christ almighty, do some
I love the Ricky Gervais show.
work.
No, this is supposed to be a rehab clinic, and Charlie is just indulgent in these people's vices. Fuck me, is she shit at her job. Charlie and
Yeah,
Baggy...
she's not great at her job. And part of it is that she's too trusting. But I don't know. I think that makes her a more interesting character.
Go to heaven to show the angels that souls can be redeemed, but the only proof Charlie offers that her idea works is Angel, the drug-addled cum dumpster.
What?
Adam points out that Charlie is a retard for suggesting this, so Charlie tries to get Adam to say what are the rules to get into heaven, and no one seems to know.
Why?
They've been there for thousands of years.
Nobody knows.
Has no one done like a basic survey?
I kind of love that though. But what it indicates is something that is interesting, that it could be set up in the next season. What actually does get you into heaven? I'm interested in seeing what kind of higher power there is above Sarah, because it seems like, you know, Sarah, we're kind of led to believe at the beginning of the episode that Sarah's kind of the top dog in heaven. But then the more time goes on in the episode, the more it seems like Sarah doesn't even really know what's going on. And Sarah, her hands are tied in some respects. Like she says, there's a lot that you don't know to Emily. And I don't really know exactly what that's supposed to mean. But I think the only way for this really to work is for there to be some higher power. Because that would explain how Serpentius got into heaven. Because Sarah didn't authorize that. So there must be some higher power, and it could be God. I mean, people have speculated that God isn't going to be a thing in this show just because it would be too controversial, but I don't know, like, why not? I mean, we have a fictional version of Lucifer. Why not a fictional version of God? It would make sense. I mean, we already have St. Peter, so that implies there must be a Jesus. So, yeah, I think it would be interesting to see God in season 2, and I hope that's where they're going.
So much time, it would be pretty easy to figure out what exactly the rules are. So the angels start arguing over the rules before Emily, the angel version of Charlie, joins her and starts lecturing everyone. So instead of one self-righteous asshole, we now have two. The show spends so much time on Emily when she doesn't matter to the story, because again...
She matters a lot to the story. What are you talking about? She's the one angel in heaven who has Charlie's back, who believes in Charlie's message. That's a huge deal for the story. That changes everything. Because that's a paradigm-shifting moment, because before this, the only exposure this message had within heaven was with her meeting with Adam and Lute in episode 1. And that was a total disaster because they weren't receptive at all. But this is someone who actually could affect change because she's in a position of power. But at the same time, she's not in a position of ultimate power. She's not the high seraphim. And so she's limited in what she can do, and there's a danger of her becoming a fallen angel, like Lucifer. So this could end up being a really important and interesting plot point in season 2. I don't know why this is like, Emily is one of the least superfluous characters in the show. I don't know why he thinks she isn't.
She is only here to sing her gay little song. Meanwhile, Vaggie, Charlie's girlfriend, is revealed to be an angel, but who cares? She's barely a character with no personality, and her relationship with Charlie is almost non-existent. So this sham of a trial ends with Heaven rejecting Charlie's terrible hotel idea, and that's the end of episode 6.
Who gives a shit?
Episode 7 has everyone prepping for the purge that's about to happen,
The least
and
good
Alistair tells
episode.
Charlie that the angels can be killed. I still can't believe that in the 1,000 years of angels killing demons, only now has somebody decided to fight back.
Well, that's just silly. Silly, yes. Idiotic, yes.
So Vaggie is sent to find Camilla in order to find out how to kill angels, which is retarded on so many levels. First, Vaggie is an angel who had her eye taken out by another angel's sword, so she, of all people, should know what harms an angel.
Yeah.
The second one is
Yeah,
Camilla
this is
saying that
a big
angelic
flaw of this episode. Another plot hole with this episode is Vaggie should know that angels can be harmed by angelic steel. There's no excuse for her not at least suspecting it. It's bad writing that she didn't even bring up the idea before this moment. She was like, really? We can be harmed or killed? It's like, yeah. Duh. You had your eye taken out and it didn't grow back. What do you think?
Which is that Carmilla is hesitant to tell Vaggie how to fight back against the angels because she does not want to be targeted again, which makes no sense since her family has already been attacked by the angels. The only reason why the scene
They
is
weren't
even
targeted,
here is
though.
because the writers wanted the pair of them to sing.
They weren't targeted. Carmilla, it's not like the angels went to Carmilla's family because they didn't even know who she was. Why would they know who she was? They're not in touch with the politics of the Pride Ring. Like, they were attacked randomly. Now, why they were out on the street, that's a better question to ask. They should have been indoors. But yeah, I mean, it's not for no reason that she's worried.
A stupid song. The other half of this episode is Charlie meeting another new character, a cannibal called Rosie, and she has to remind Charlie to forgive Vaggie for not telling her that she was an angel. That's right, an actual cannibal has to teach Charlie about forgiveness.
Christ, who wrote this?
Now remind me, what exactly was the whole point of the Hazbin Hotel? Oh right, second chances, I forgot. Charlie sings a song and manages to convince all of these cannibals to die for her cause before singing...
Hold on, let's hear that again.
Angel. That's right, and out is Charlie meeting another new character, a cannibal called Rosie, and she has to remind Charlie to forgive Vaggie for not telling her that she was an angel. That's right, an actual cannibal has to teach Charlie about forgiveness.
I mean, what do you think? Just because Charlie has it in her to forgive people she doesn't have a really strong emotional attachment to, that means that she's just going to be totally cool with her girlfriend, like, not telling her something extremely important? Because what that indicates is that there isn't enough trust between her and Vaggie. And she thought that there was. She thought that they had ultimate trust between them. And so that shakes her understanding of her relationship with Vaggie. And yeah, she does forgive them pretty easily. I mean, she forgives Vaggie pretty easily in the end of the episode. It doesn't take much. It just takes some reassurance from Rosie. And it takes her having somebody to talk to about it other than Vaggie. And Alistair obviously can't be that. So it had to be Rosie. But like, Charlie is so alone without Vaggie. Vaggie is the only person in Charlie's life who really is a close confidant who she can trust and she can express her feelings to. And in most respects, Vaggie is good at that. But in this one case, Vaggie couldn't do that because Vaggie was the source of the problem. And so it was frustrating her. She couldn't confide in someone. And Charlie is an extrovert. Charlie is someone who needs validation and reassurance from other people. And so it had to come from someone like Rosie, who could step in and say what was basically obvious, which she already kind of knew to be true, but just to reassure her, to let her know that that's the truth. It makes perfect sense. Now, I don't find it a particularly interesting story point, because it was extended through the whole episode, and it was kind of made the secondary issue with their that little arc in the A plot. And I don't know, like, it wasn't interesting because we knew what the resolution would be. We knew it's not Charlie's style to just like hold a grudge against Vaggie forever. We knew she was going to forgive her. But it does show that Charlie isn't perfect, that she isn't just some ultimate wise, forgiving being, that she does have the capacity to be hurt.
But sing. So the big fight breaks out and the angels get killed so easily. They don't even have to be killed by angelic weapons. They just die by flying into a wall. The only person who represents...
No, they were stopped by flying into Alistair's shield. Like, do you not understand? Like, the show set up that they can only be killed by angelic weapons. They're not just like, the show can be dumb at times, but it's not that dumb. Like, have some amount of benefit of the doubt here. They were killed by the guys on the ground, the cannibals, using the angelic weapons that they stole from the angels and others that Carmilla happened to have on standby to kill them. The shield was just there to buy some time and to prevent them from coming in all at once. This Reaper guy is quite obtuse. Yeah, he is. He's not a very good media analyst. He's not a very good analyst. I could teach him a thing or two about analysis.
So this goes on for a bit until Snake Guy tries to make a heroic kamikaze attempt against Adam, but is killed off as a joke. Everyone then starts to...
Yeah, it's a weird tonal moment, because on the one hand, I think both versions of this work. It works as a serious moment where what's his name sacrifices himself heroically. It works as a comedic beat, where in true Serpentius fashion, he dies in a pathetic way, and Adam cracks his little joke. Oh, that could have been bad. But when it's back to back, when it's the joke followed by the no, it's very weird. It's a tonal whiplash that doesn't work. But I like both of them. And the thing is, you have to have the dramatic moment because it has to matter to the characters. It wouldn't make sense if it didn't. But the joke was so funny that, I want that. So I understand why they did it the way they did it, because it's hard to not indulge when one is necessary and one is so fun that you kind of want to have your cake and eat it too, but it just didn't work.
To cry, acting very emotional, like their best friend has just died, even though nobody treated Snake Guy with any sort of respect.
Because they're assholes!
So they are about to
Keith
lose
David.
until Lucifer shows up and saves the day. Adam's death ends up being a joke. Charlie sings a song about rebuilding the hotel, which only takes about 2 minutes, and Snake Guy goes to heaven because Adam killed him. Good job, Adam. You're the only person who redeemed anyone in the show. Some people will say it's because of his heroic sacrifice, but that's not true, because why did none of the other cannibals go to heaven when they too sacrificed themselves to defend the hotel, just like
because no, they did not. That's not. They know. They didn't. They fought so that they could eat angels. That's why they were there. Did you not pay attention to what was going on in episode 7? The only reason Charlie was able to get them to fight for her was because Alistair came in and promised them that they could eat all the angels they wanted. You idiot! It's basic text. It's not even subtext. You're not understanding the show that you just watched.
These films did, but when you have songs just for the sake of having them, you end up with irrelevant characters like Carmilla and Emily, who are only there to sing their gay little songs. Anyway,
Wrong.
That was the Hazbin Hotel.
It's a piece of shit.
Morning glass.
Yeah, that video was a piece of shit. I'm gonna upload that as a separate thing just so that I can troll that guy, because fuck that guy. Dumbass.